I have just picked up my next Agatha Christie, Cat Among the Pigeons, and though part of me was saying review, appointment with death, I am saving that for an in-depth video review that I've been planning for a while. It goes all into the psychological effects of parental mental abuse, but that's for another day. I actually finished the book I'm going to review back in July and had been putting off reviewing it because I had a lot to say, and I want to go back and review the book that came before it first. But for some reason, this one kept on making itself known. So who am I to resist its call? September, like August, has got off to a little bit of a rough start. In fact, I have only just started book 5 of the month, and I am just a tad disappointed in this, but what will be will be, and right now I think it will be something of a quiet month. I have hit my reading goal on both Storygraph and Goodreads. They were both different for no specific reason, but to be fair, that isn't what's important when it comes to reading. As long as I get enjoyment out of the books I pick up, that's all that counts. Anyway, here I am, no spoilers, as opinion-filled as ever, and ready to roll. All of which means it's time for the latest episode of Being Bookish. This week I am headed to a beautiful Buckinghamshire town on the banks of the River Thames, where I am going to be revisiting some old friends in the hope that together we're going to be able to solve a rather unfortunate murder, as well as uncovering some uncomfortable secrets. If you hadn't guessed already, the book I am talking about is The Queen of Poisons by Robert Thorogood, the third in his Marlow Murder Club series. I'm your host Ray, self-confessed bookworm, introvert, hermit, and long-term depression sufferer. Join me on my journey through my ever-growing to-be-read pile and enjoy the latest of my 100% spoiler-free book reviews. Had a little bit of a disaster getting hold of this book, especially as I wanted the beautiful indie bookshop special edition with cleverly designed sprayed green edges, in paperback of course, but that's neither here nor there. I'm here to talk about the book and everything I liked and didn't about it. The Marlow Murder Club is on the hunt for a killer. Geoffrey Lushington, Mayor of Marlow, dies suddenly during a town council meeting. When traces of aconite, also known as the Queen of Poisons, are found in his coffee cup, the police realise he was murdered. But who did it? And why? The police bring Judith, Susie and Bex in to investigate the murder as civilian advisors right from the start, so they have free rein to interview suspects and follow the evidence to their heart's content, which is perfect because Judith has no time for rules and standard procedure. But this case has the Marlow Murder Club stumped. Who would want to kill the affable mayor of Marlow? How did they even get the poison into his coffee? And is anyone else in danger? The Marlow Murder Club is about to face their most difficult case yet. Marlow may seem like a quaint English town full of beautiful houses, small businesses, and people going about their everyday lives with not a single worry in the world, but looks can be deceiving. Beneath the serene surface, a dark secret lurks. When the Mayor of Marlow, Geoffrey Lushington, drops dead during a town council planning meeting, the tranquility is shattered. And when it's discovered that he was poisoned with aconite, a deadly plant toxin, the village is thrown into a frenzy. Even worse, Suze was at the scene wanting to get planning permission to construct a small capsule hotel in her back garden. Yeah, I don't think it really is as small as she thought it was, and that becomes a minor plot point later on in the book. The biggest mystery that needs to be solved is who could have wanted to harm the mayor, a man who seemed to have no enemies. No one has a bad thing to say about him when asked. He's kind, always happy to help anyone who needs it, and everyone appears to like him. Of course, who wants to speak ill of the dead and place themselves at the top of the suspect list? As the local police investigate the cause of death, they uncover a tangled web of secrets, lies, and hidden motives. It turns out that the mayor wasn't as beloved as everyone thought. He had a reputation for being a difficult and demanding boss, and had made enemies with several people in the village. Enter the Marlow Murder Club, Judith, Suze, and Bex. These three unlikely friends who have already solved several murders and made a nuisance of themselves with the local police have a knack for solving mysteries. While the local police are overwhelmed, the trio is eager to get involved. Though it's reluctantly given, they cannot help but push their way into the investigation from the very start. And their insistence on always being there ends up with their contact on the force, DI Tanika Malik, reluctantly giving them the official title of civilian advisors. This, along with Beck's position in the community, gives them the freedom to investigate as they see fit. As they delve into the mayor's life, they uncover a tangled web of secrets, lies, and hidden motives. The mayor was a controversial figure with enemies both high and low. So who on this list of potential enemies was the one who put the aconite in Jeffrey's coffee cup? Was it a jealous rival, a disgruntled employee, or perhaps someone closer to home? Together, Bex, Suze and Judith find themselves investigating a case that is far more complicated than it originally seems, interviewing countless suspects and navigating the complex social intricacies of Marlow in order to discover who killed their victim. There's no denying that our intrepid investigators enjoy a challenge, but they didn't anticipate it would be quite as dangerous as it ends up being. The killer is desperate to protect their identity and the secret that led to the crime committed, and silencing Judith and her friends becomes a vital part of this. Nothing is off the table. The trio must be careful, or they could become the next victims. I have made no secret of the fact that I prefer the Marlow Murder Club books to the Thursday Murder Club, which is far more popular, and I think that this has a lot to do with my enjoyment of Thorogood's other creation, Death in Paradise. The earlier seasons were undeniably incredible, introducing characters with depth and comedic tone. As ever, it's interesting to see what other people think of books that I have picked up, whether I enjoyed them or not. Carmen was a fan of the first two books, but wasn't a fan of this one. She gave it 1 star and said, "I've really been enjoying the series, so I'm a little sad that this one turned out to be a dud. We follow Judith, Bex and Suze as they do their thing and hunt down the town's latest killer. Unfortunately, the group's interest and involvement in the mystery felt super forced. It seemed like they were going through the motions just to go through them. It didn't make me feel drawn into the mystery at all. I also had a hard time buying that Judith and co. actually solved the murder. It seemed like they were accusing everyone and their mum before they suddenly knew who it was for a while. We were told this rather than seeing it play out, so it was like, okay, Judith. That said, I did like getting to know some of the characters a little more. I was hoping that Tanika would be more involved with the mystery-solving trio, but at least we did get to learn a little more about her home life. I hope that we get to see Tanika and everyone more involved with each other during the investigations, and that we'll see everyone more open to hearing what Tanika has to say outside of picking her brain. I really wanted to like this book because I loved the previous two, but it was just a miss for me. The mystery didn't pull me in. It seemed like everyone was just running around through the motions, and I'm not sure I buy that they managed to solve the mystery. I kept finding myself more interested in the drama surrounding Bex and her mother-in-law, and wishing the mystery involved Bex and her in-laws rather than the town council. Plus, the fat phobia that emerges as the story progresses is extremely unnecessary and really soured what good the story had going. I have to be honest, it feels as though I'm repeating myself often when I talk about the reviewers who didn't enjoy a book. Though every opinion is unique, they often share similar points, and the reviewers who didn't enjoy this book are no different. In fact, as I went through the more negative reviews for Queen of Poisons, I noticed that many of them found one particular plot element to be a reason for their disappointment in the book. the dim views expressed about an extremely overweight murder suspect and his potential character that several readers felt were fatphobic. As I always say, though, when it comes to reviews, opinions are incredibly personal. So what one loves, another may not, and vice versa. I'm going to get into my personal opinion of Queen of Poisons a little bit later, but I do like to try and keep things balanced. So I take a look at other people's views in order to help me do it. On Goodreads, the overall rating for this book is 3.93, and on Storygraph, it's 3.81. Looking at both of these, there does tend to be a minor difference, and I think that is given by the flexibility afforded by the quarter ratings that Storygraph gives a reader. This makes Queen of Poisons, though, the highest rated book in the Marlow series at present by a single decimal point. And I'm not joking. I think Death Comes to Marlow has 3.92. This book was released in hardback in January this year and paperback in July. And while the rating is higher than Marlow Murder Club and Death Comes to Marlow, fewer readers have so far given it a score. At present, it has 8,355 ratings and 910 written reviews. Out of that pool, 71% or 6,012 readers gave it a positive 4 or 5 star rating, while just under 4% or 307 reviewers didn't enjoy the book as much and gave it just 1 or 2 stars. Sasha is a fan of the series and felt this book was a great addition, giving it 5 stars. She said,
"You're incorrigible." I do hope so. Imagine being corrigible. How boring. My favourite Marlow ladies are back. This is book 3 of the series, and with each book it just keeps getting better and better. I honestly would read endless books about this crime-solving trio. I really enjoyed that we got to learn a little bit more about the ladies in this book. It feels with each book more of their personalities, home life, and lore is revealed, and I love discovering these things just as much as I love solving the murders. The murder itself was fun. Even though this is a cozy mystery, I was genuinely shocked by some of the revelations. You never know about these small British towns. I was quite proud of myself during this book as I managed to sniff out the motive, but not the culprit. So I'm definitely getting better. I can't wait for book 4.
there is nothing like a good cozy mystery on a rainy Sunday afternoon with a small plate of digestives and a steaming hot cup of tea. Though I continue to look forward to finding a series of books as good as those written by Agatha Christie, though I would be the first to admit there are a few clunkers among the amazing novels. In the interim, there are some really good authors out there who continue to create fantastic mysteries that sometimes I can solve, and other times I am admittedly surprised at discovering who did it. Anyway, now I've told you about other people's views, let's get down to it. Here are my thoughts on The Queen of Poisons by Robert Thorogood. Completely spoiler-free and 100% honest. Did I like the book? I have to say, yes, I did like the book. Otherwise, I don't think I would be talking about it because I've done far too many I didn't really enjoy this reviews in the last few months. I love the characters, especially Judith. I know that she is in her 70s. She's 76 and she still goes naked swimming and loves to get involved in stuff. I can't help thinking it's partially because she is bored. Maybe she needs to join the U3A. But there is such vibrance to her. She is not the cliched old woman sitting on her sofa with a throw, knitting or crocheting and watching Homes Under the Hammer on the TV. She is someone who needs to get out there, needs to be involved in things. And I think that she has kept her brain brain moving and working through continuing to create crosswords. She is a very intelligent woman, and we do find out elements about her character, her past, and her intentions in this book. In the first book, we found out about her husband and the unfortunate events surrounding his death and her involvement with it and her involvement with him as a person. We also find out that she is a massive hoarder, continuing the habit that her aunt had started in the home she now lives in. What we didn't discover was that, though it's obvious because everybody has one, she has a past, and that past comes back to visit her in this book in the form of someone that she had a relationship with, a friendship when she was younger, and this particular gentleman is interested in reforming, rebuilding that relationship. But Judith isn't. And that leads into stories of Bex and her mother-in-law. I know that people may well look at Bex and her mother-in-law and say, wow, that's a cliched relationship. She doesn't like her mother-in-law. Quite often it's the son and mother-in-law relationship that you look at. But when a woman marries the only son of another woman, and that woman is widowed, there is the cliche of the mother being very clingy. Oh, he's my sunshine. He's my baby boy. He's your baby boy. He's probably bordering on 50, has children, a job, and does all these other things outside of the home. But to a mother, her son never grows up, at least in this book. When Beck's mother-in-law comes to stay, she is incredibly pushy, she is interfering, and Bex feels as though her position in the household is being usurped. Her husband is doing nothing to change this belief because, as far as he's concerned, oh, she's just trying to help. Bex doesn't see it that way, and you can understand where she's coming from. She already has enough problems in the home. She feels not insignificant, but she doesn't feel as though she's contributing as much to the home. She's frustrated. She has 2 teenage children who don't need her anymore. And the only way to express herself outside of the home is these investigations with Judith and Suze. So when Judith presents her resolution in the form of, why not introduce your mother-in-law to the friend that I don't really want to meet up with? It's a match made in heaven. And I love the way that these two connected, these two particular plot points. But that's not the core of the story. The core of the story is about Judith, Bex and Suze and their civilian advisor status. I have to admit, I was a little bit disappointed with this plot point. Tanaka made a big mistake in giving Judith and the others this lanyard, specifically Judith though, I think, because it gave her the idea that she is the police, that she can do everything they can. And she doesn't need permission. She storms into places, she takes over things and doesn't stop to consider, should I? Because she can. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that is a lesson that I don't think Judith has quite got into her head at this point. And it comes across very obviously in this book. I do think that it is unfortunate because there was such potential, courtesy of the last book of Death Comes to Marlow, for Tanaka to become more involved, more entwined in the friendship between these 3 women. She would slot in perfectly, and I do think it was a missed opportunity. An unfortunate one, because Tanaka's character plays off well against the other 3 women because she has the knowledge, she has the experience, and these other women have life experience that she doesn't yet have. They've done everything that she's doing in life, not in her career. They use her as someone to check paperwork, to test things, to do the almost to do the grunt work while they're swanning around, flashing their lanyards and interfering in things that are actually putting them in serious danger. Judith specifically has no concept of personal safety, boundaries, or anything else as long as she is achieving her goals. And I find that quite sad. Not quite as sad as a specific line that keeps on cropping up as I'm reading through reviews and articles about the books. And that is the line, "I don't live alone. I've got a cat." You kind of do still live alone. Speaking as someone who has a cat, I live alone. My cat is only interested in me when she's hungry or when she wants somewhere warm to sit where I'm currently sitting. They are the only two instances when my cat is anywhere near me without being forced to. And when you pick her up and she's got claws, it kind of hurts. Another thing that I found quite sad when I was reading through not my opinion of the book, but other people's opinions, was the lower rated reviews regarding fat phobia in the book, which was specifically directed towards one of the main murder suspects. Admittedly, I have to say I'm rarely triggered by anything because a book is not necessarily a reflection of the author's personal opinions. And in this case, I think that the fact the suspect was referred to as significantly obese was a plot device. Yeah, some people may be triggered by the fact that this character was overweight. However, it hid the character's true abilities and hidden motives. Okay, so they were sitting there going, oh, well, I don't think he could do it because he's very overweight. But it also highlighted the fact that he was a troubled man who used food, as many do, I'm one of them, as an emotional crutch. Now, the references to him weren't obviously negative or insulting, or at least they didn't feel as though they were to me. It didn't feel as though they were using a fat character as a stereotype, because they didn't sit there and say, oh, he's lazy. They acknowledged that he did certain things and he had abilities. It's just that they also said, well, he couldn't have done that because he's overweight. They were talking about getting through a window. And I'm sorry, I couldn't climb through a window because my upper body strength is nowhere near as good as the fact that I have got a massive backside. Obviously, this is just my personal interpretation, and I know that not everyone will agree with me, and that's fine. Overall, though, this book was a good addition to the series. Was it as good as Death Comes to Marlow? In my view, no. But it was still good, and I am still looking forward to the next one, which takes place on a boat. I get seasick, but it's on the Thames, so a river ride is not so bad. I have been on the Seine. Themes that make the book. As with every single cozy mystery that exists, there are some underlying themes that make the story far more profound than it appears to be on the surface. Something that I am definitely going to cover in far more detail when I do my intensive review of Appointment with Death. But this isn't Appointment with Death, this is The Queen of Poisons. Though it may not seem like it, there are some themes covered in Queen of Poisons that are deeper than they initially appear to be. Probably the most obvious one is the secrets uncovered as Judith, Susan Bex continue their investigation. So much is hidden beneath the surface of their seemingly wonderful victim, Geoffrey Lushington, and those who he kept around him. He was a well-liked mayor, but as the Marlow Murder Club digs deeper, they discover strained relationships and underhanded dealings beneath the surface of his seemingly pleasant personality. Characters connected to him hold personal secrets, some involving financial or political ambitions, others including infidelity. These hidden motives complicate the case, as they provide multiple potential reasons for his murder. Additionally, there are secrets related to how the poison, aconite, was introduced to his coffee, pointing to a well-thought-out plan rather than something that was off the cuff or spur of the moment. Probably the biggest deception that Lushington carries out is the facade that he displays to the rest of the world, that of a kind, friendly man who is a strong leader in the community, who is, in truth, a corrupt liar, who uses his position to manipulate the people who trust him to have their best interests at heart. If you're looking for something like this, or you loved this and want something else, then you'll love these. I feel as though I am always recommending the same selection of authors when it comes to cozy mysteries, so I'm not going to repeat myself. However, if you do want to hear some older recommendations from me, take a look at my cozy mystery playlist, which I will link in the notes. No doubt you will find a few gems in there. I know that I have already mentioned I've been experiencing a little bit of a slump this month. Unfortunately, unlike August, there doesn't appear to be anything resembling an uptick in my reading, and being so close to the end of September, I'm just going to do my best to shrug it off. I have started book 5, and though I am still disappointed that I have struggled to concentrate, I know that I can't change it, so I'm just going to focus on finishing the books that need to be finished, including the final book in this month's 1-star review selection, The Beholders. As I predicted a few weeks ago, I didn't buy many books over the course of this month. In fact, I have been incredibly restrained, and my pre-orders were the only books that were delivered. I have made a few more pre-orders for October and December, but luckily I have been collecting Waterstones points and had a couple of vouchers to cash in, so they are legitimately guilt-free buys. I am still incredibly conscious of the chunkier books that are sitting unread on my 24 for 2024 pile, but with a week off at the end of October, an extended weekend in November, and almost 2 weeks off at the end of the year, I have time to pick them up and enjoy them, and I can't wait to share my views of those reads with you when they actually happen. The books that I have pre-ordered are more than likely going to be shoved on a shelf until next year when I figure out a new way to select my 25 for 2025. They may even be books that I pull out of my 1-star reviews jar in an effort to reduce the number of older books on my TBR before the end of next year. I can't believe I am already talking about 2025. Well, that's it for this week, and thank you so much again for listening. If you like what you hear, why not share it with your friends and family, and please post a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other podcatchers where you listen. It really does help to increase outreach. You can also follow me on Instagram as beingbookish.pod and on X as being_bookish. You can also find these episodes and video content on my YouTube channel, Ray Loves Reading, which can be found using the tag at beingbookish.pod. Or if you prefer to read everything, you can find some spoiler-free reviews and my reading tracker, plus all those links on my website, beingbookish.co.uk. Also, if you want to find out what books I have been unrolling this year, run, don't walk to my Vinted. There aren't as many as I thought, and they are legitimately selling really quickly. I think at the moment I've got 3 left. Now I am going to pick up my Christie book and enjoy another visit with Poirot, because who doesn't? So until next time, this is me saying farewell.